Happy Saturday. I wanted to jump on really quick. I got a few minutes. I'm actually gonna get a haircut. Got a special event. It's my sister-in-law's birthday today, so we got to get ready for that. But I wanted to come on and do a quick live and talk about a watch that was featured yesterday. We actually went live and we talked to the brand owner of ProTech. That's Rotek. Barry Cohen, and we had a very nice chat. We went in depth as far as his history is concerned, all the way leading up to ProTech. If you guys don't know, he's the former owner of Luminox, and he specializes in tritium tubes integrated into a watch. That's the technology that he uses, that he puts into the watch. It's actually what's on my wrist. Of course, everybody wants a wrist check, so I've got the ProTech 1004 O series for orange on the left, and of course we're double wristing. I've got the F91W on the right, and I actually customized this with a polarized film, blue negative, and I put it on a Vario strap. So double wristing as usual. Um, I wanted to make this live because I want to talk about just specifically the aspects of this. We're going to do a review video for this watch on ProTech as far as that is concerned, where I'm going to do like a normal standard long form video review like I do for the other watches. But I wanted to speak in my own words to the watch and how I've been feeling about it, to be honest with you. I want to break this down and really give you guys what the gist is of me actually obtaining this watch. Now, I reached out to Barry for this watch because I was quite interested in the technology. I know that there's a lot of Loom people out there. You guys are all, fixated if you are on Loom for BGW9. That's usually the most brightest Loom as far as like affordability goes, and depending on how much paint they put on it. But with this technology, you're always going to have a glow, right? Standard Loom, you need light source to interact with the paint that's on there, and depending on how much light is absorbed on the watch, depends on how long and how bright that is going to happen. But with this technology, especially in very dark light, the Loom is going to be glowing for as long as that chemicals are, radium, not radium, tritium. As far as the tritium is concerned in those tubes, and first thing is first for the technology, tritium is completely safe, right? I know people get a little nervous when they hear something like that because they think of radium and that not being safe. Tritium is 100% safe in watches, and that was really what attracted me to get the watch, because just to have something, whether or not I wore it on the wrist and it got sunlight, it's gonna glow at night. And I'm the type of collector that likes to have a range. I collected a lot of iconic watches, all affordable. If I say the names of them, if I say the PRX, if I say the Casio Duro, if I say the Seiko SKX009, things of that nature, a lot of homage watches I have in my collection. But I'm up to the point where I want to continue to put collections of watches in that are different, right? That are going to have standalone features in it with technology that's put into it. DK, what's going on, brother man? Good morning. Um, and that's what led me to, reach out to Barry, see if he would be interested in sending me a watch on loaner, and that's exactly the watch that I have here. And it's all about value at the end of the day, right? Whenever we're collecting, and when we mature more so, we start changing what we value in and out of watches. And that's something that I value when I'm looking at a watch. We look at the price tag, right? A lot of us are trading time for money, and our money is very valuable because of that, because you can't get time back. So when we invest in a watch, and when I say invest, I mean put it in your collection, put it on your wrist, wear it, bang it around, enjoy it. That's how I wear my watches. I don't baby any of them. What's going on, Sokol? How are you? Um, that's how I value watches, and I really want to see if I can get something that's a little different. So with this watch, it's well constructed. It has a lot of thought and a lot of first class implement into it. Starting with the case back, as you guys can see, it's an embossed graving on it, but look how 3D this is. And he has other models. If you watch the interview that we did, he has another case back that is it's 3D, guys. Like it really comes out, it really shows. That's the logo for the company. Screwed down, obviously. And normally when I do my reviews, I start with the case back. So that's where we're gonna start off here. And let me see if I can get it a little closer. As you guys can see, that's super, super clean. It has a rugged look. The logo is very, very, very noticeable. And it has a lot of character, even just looking at it. It gives a tactical feel, which is intentional because at the end of the day, that was his target market. But he's also looking to reach out to enthusiasts like us, like people who are just wearing our watches to the office, wearing our watches on our regular activity, whether it goes for a jog or anything like that. And as you can see, closer to the chapter ring, we actually have the tritium tubes that have been placed also on the hands, also on the second hand. Now on the chapter ring, it's recessed, right? So that's something like if you guys are really concerned, I'm sure Barry has thought of everything that needs to go for securing those tubes so like that they don't fall out. But what's nice is on the chapter ring, they are recessed into there and they're on the minute, hour, and second hand. So you're going to be able to read this watch any time of night. It's ready to go, whether you kept this in the closet for a year straight. Just make sure that you understand that it doesn't work like regular lume. It's always going to be illuminated. It's always going to be ready to go as long as it has its lifetime, and that's about 25 years. And it's a gradual thing. It's not like the lights go out right away. It's going to be a gradual change in the lume power. So the logo at the 12 o'clock is applied, and it matches the case back. As you can see, the logo there. We have the logo applied. It's a nice plate, and I heard a lot, not a lot, but I've heard people say that it's rather large. I'm okay with that. I think it's well done, the way it's shaped. It actually gives it kind of like a unique teardrop look. And of course, at the 6 o'clock, we have Protect, and we have the indication that it's 300 meters. That's an excellent depth. Personally, I will never reach that. But I know a lot of people value higher meters in being able to take their watch. It's just, I think it's more of like a feel for wanting to be secure and wanting to know that, hey, if this is 300 meters and I only go into a swimming pool, I'm okay. But again, it's meant for a lot of rescue people, a lot of people who are really jumping into water, being submerged, deep sea diving, whatever they're going to put against this watch, that's exactly what they're going to need, with that security. 5 O-rings on the, so of course, with that amount of meters, we have a screw down crown, right? And there's 5 O-rings inside of this, which, I've never seen 5 O-rings before in a watch. And that's just to make sure that it's watertight and extra security. So with that being said as well, right, I talked earlier about value in watches, and you have to understand that the technology that's put into this watch with the tritium tubes alone, he has to have a factory that manufactures the tritium tubes, and then he's got to have another factory assembling the watches. So there's a cost there at the end of the day. He can't do it all in one place. So keep that in mind. I believe the watch is around $400 to $500 range. I think it's closer to 500, sub 500. And this is a quartz movement. This is a Japanese quartz movement that lasts 10 years. So you're not having to change that battery often, so you don't compromise any of the seals, which I think is also another thought process into making the watch effective, right? Making it surely a tool watch at that point. So all of those things get factored in, and there's a lot more that we're going to discuss, but I also want you guys to wrap your mind around the price value to it. You already have those two things. We know that we're getting technology on it. We know that it's water sealed, and with that, he actually has the watches tested twice, both in air and water, for those seals, right? So when I say that, he's not batch testing these, okay? The watch that you purchase is guaranteed to be tested twice for making sure that there's no compromise on the watch to the depths that it's claiming to be able to handle. So that's another thing, that's another cost for these watch manufacturers, or for Barry specifically, because he's making sure that each individual watch is going to be tested twice, and making sure that the watch that you receive is going to handle the job or the task that you're going to have going forward. Now, another great feature about the watch, and I want you guys to take a look at the band. That's something that we didn't really talk about so much, but first off, it's very, very thick, very, very supple. as far as it goes. It has a great design on it. There is some branding as far as it goes, but it's done well. It's, you know, he could have done that logo in black to match the case and make it stand out, but he didn't do that, and I like the fact that that was done. And it has some marks over here just to give it some design, but in the middle, if I don't know if you guys can see, yeah, you see that creased right down the middle? I like that. That's nice and neat, and that goes throughout the entire band. And I feel like that's more of a nod, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's a nod to like a uniform and how, you know, all of the military, Navy, they take a lot of pride in the way they look, right? It's unacceptable to look sloppy, as we all know. So I think that that crease also is a nod towards that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but a nice, neat crease going throughout it. And on the securing of the lugs, there's actually a metal tube that runs through here that feeds the spring bar. And that's going to be extra security so you don't lose the strap and you don't have a spring bar failure. You know, obviously if you torque it enough and there's enough force, it's gonna come off. But there's extra security in the bands that he is putting on here and making sure that that doesn't happen. And I think that that's also something that we have to factor into the watch and the cost and the value of it. I think it's phenomenal that there's that added security. That, again, I don't really see that too much with other brands. This is the first time that I've heard there being a reinforcement for the spring bar, so I thought that was really cool. And possibly, not possibly, I should detach this strap when I do the review in-depth long form video, so you guys can see that tube and see exactly how. I'm kind of curious to see, is it easy still to remove the band with that tube? What is the thickness of it versus the spring bar? You know, just really go in depth to what that looks like. So another feature that I definitely appreciate, and I know you guys will, because I know there's a lot of people that are big on misaligned bezels. This bezel is a 60 click, not misaligned at all. I think I have it straight on there. Sometimes it just moves on its own and I forget to adjust it, but it's actually perfect there. There's actually tritium here on the pip as well. That's important to know where that pip is standing if you are timing something, especially for divers. You know, time is of the essence, and knowing how much time they have on their oxygen or whatever the case, they want to make sure that they can see this no matter what and where the location is. At the 12, we can't see it today because it's not dark, but you'll see it in my video that I do. There's a different color for the 12, also letting you know the orientation of the watch, whether whether or not you have the watch on wrist, or if you have it, you know, somewhere else, you'll always know where the 12 o'clock location is to indicate quickly where that time is going to be. Another feature, speaking of the bezel, is I was curious, right? This is a carbon fiber case, right? So that's also a special material that I am interested to put into my collection that's different than the stainless steel, the plastic, if you will, that I have with my Moonswatch. I was getting kind of like triple effect adding a watch like this to my collection, which I'll do down the road, where I'm going to get the Tritium technology, I'm going to get a special material for the casing, and he actually has an automatic series, which I'm more interested in. This one is quartz, but he has an automatic lineup, which is the 1212 series on his website, Protek, Protek, that he just released not too long ago. And it's a red dial, so I'm really, really interested because I don't have a red dial. So it's going to cover a lot of bases as far as adding that to my collection. But the bezel is very, very nice, right? It has zero back play. Like this thing, once it gets into the position you want it, I'm gonna torque it backwards and it has no give whatsoever. That's forward, and this is me trying to push it back. You know how sometimes it slides, or it slides easily forward even? It doesn't even slide forward even easily. It has some resistance to it, but there are some bump outs on the bezel that help you with grip. So you'll find that it'll be a lot more tension than what you're used to in a bezel, and it's intentional because you don't want it to slip forward as much as you want, or rather you probably even more so don't want it to slip back if you're really timing something. But zero back play, and Of course, us enthusiasts like to hear the click. And I was wondering if the click was going to translate because I've had some DLC, PVD and DLC coated watches where the click is a little muffled because of that coating. And I was wondering if the carbon fiber was also going to be um, muffling that click. And we like to hear like cracking into a safe type of click. Listen to this sound. Ooh, oh, that's crispy. That is crispy. So I was really excited and I was really impressed with the bezel altogether, the zero backplate. And on the live that I had with Barry in the interview, he did mention that he also paid mine to his metal divers, his stainless steel divers. The bezels interact the same exact way. Those are stainless steel. His field watch is actually titanium, which is, I think, also exciting because no matter where you go with his lineup thus far, you're getting different materials that are dedicated to the specific watch, right? So if you want carbon fiber, you get carbon fiber with this series. If you want stainless steel divers, he has that as well. And if you want a titanium watch, that's a field watch, a lot of history there. You're also getting that too. So I talked about the movement only being 10 years, no compromise on the seals, extra tested. The bezel is phenomenal. The tritium tubes are always going to be illuminated, and extra precautions on the strap, extra precautions, 5 O-rings for the crown, screw down, of course. So all of those things are going into the watch. So when you're looking at the price tag, remember that and say to yourself, okay, this is a watch that is a quartz watch, but what is it to the watch that's bringing it to that price? And to be honest with you, I think that that price is very, very, very low as far as I think that he could easily make the watch $600 with all the tech that he's putting into it and all the thought process. The band is very, very supple, like I said. Right when I first started wearing it, it was conforming to the wrist, and it's very thick. That's another thing. You either get either or with a lot of companies. If it's very thick, then it's kind of stiff. But this is going to last, I feel, almost a lifetime with this kind of thickness, and it being supple. It just is in par with the rest of the ideology around the watch. So we do have a date wheel complication at the 3 o'clock. And it is an aperture that is noticeable. It's surrounded with white marking and it's a white date wheel. Should he have done a black date wheel on this? I don't know. I don't know. It definitely disrupts the 3 being there. Should it have been at the 6 o'clock? You know, these are all the things that I know a lot of people are going to think about. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of white markings for the hours and everything else. So it kind of does blend in. And it's not that, you know, it's not that stark. It doesn't really hit you to where you say, I really wish the date wheel matched the dial, in my opinion at least. And he's got military time on there, of course, alluding to the collaboration that he has with the Marines. And even at the 3 o'clock, there's still a military time where he got rid of the 3, but he still has the military time on there. So that's nice to keep things a little bit more cohesive. So yeah, man, it's a phenomenal watch. The only thing that jumped out at me when I first got it was I'm more of a automatic Trap Vision 3D. What's going on, brother? Everybody who's jumping in, I'm sorry, my mind. Good morning to everybody who's joining me. I appreciate you guys. We're talking about ProTek, PROTEK, just after having an interview live with Barry. So if you missed that and you want to see this watch talked about, or more so the company talked about from the owner himself, check that out. But I have this on wrist and I wanted to just jump on here and do a live to talk about it because I was fired up after that interview with him. And I just wanted to do something more focused, and I'm going to do a review video, like I said, about this, just to give it more in depth. But, you know, if you're interested and you're going to check it out on the website, there is a 20% discount code that he gave me graciously. You guys can make the purchase of the watch and use that discount code. The discount code is SKY, half of my first name. Type that in. But where I was before is the only thing that really was like, for me was I wanted an automatic inside the watch. It makes a lot of sense to have quartz, and I'm not trying to disparage quartz. I have tons of quartz watches in my collection, specifically, even well-timed ones like the Bulova Lunar Pilot, right? That's incredibly accurate. I have a bunch of watches that are quartz, and it's a nice break when you don't want to wind and time. It's just a feel for me. I go back and forth, but that makes a lot of sense to start off with in his watches, because again, his target audience is rescue teams, is military. And Trap, I know that you served. I know that there's a lot of people that are watching that served, so I definitely would take a look at this. And if you know people that are in the service still, if you know any rescue team people, if you know any police officers, just anybody within the field, this is a watch that I would say show it to them at least. I'm motivated to do these things to give independent brands a spotlight. And he's done an incredible job with Kickstarter, which he didn't really need to do Kickstarter. He actually had the money to fund everything himself, but he needed the outlet to get this watch in front of people so they can see it. And he actually was able to sell them to many different countries using Kickstarter. So it was really like a social media outlet for him, which is where I was fired up to give him some assistance, right? Getting him on my channel and hopefully getting some more eyes on it. But I want that to also spread. I want other content creators to also, if they're interested, feature his watch, maybe talk with him, maybe have an interview, because good people like Barry, man, and he really is a good guy. The guy you see on camera is the guy you see off camera. There's no difference. He's just an absolute gentleman, and he's been doing this a very long time, right? I mentioned before that he was the owner of Luminex. So many people got that wrong in his interviews, and I just was like laughing about it. And here I am saying Luminox, former owner, now doing ProTech after leaving them for many years. But he has a lot of history. He has a lot of skin in the game. He's a master of relationships. He just from the moment that I reached out to him, I found out his watches through Kickstarter, to believe it or not. And the moment I messaged him, he just going back and forth, him feeling me out, because here I am, some random guy, with the channel saying, hey, if you send me. But, he's a master of relationships. I'm going to go on record to say that. It's kind of like that old school feel where, things were done a little bit differently. He often talks about a story where he first got into business of doing tech watches by going to Switzerland, meeting up with a manufacturer that does the tritium as far as getting that technology for his watches. And it was a handshake deal, right? We're talking about 89, where he sat down for 4 days and nothing but passion in his pocket. And guy cut him a check for $80,000 right then and there in his name, no contract. It was none of that stuff back then. Things were done very, very differently. And there was a level of honor that you had inside to do right by the person. So after that was done, of course, there was an agreement for paying them back. He exceeded that expectation. So, I don't want to go into too much because we went through it in the interview, but, just a stand-up guy. And for me, I've talked about it before. I'm looking at brands on who the creators are. What are their passions? What is their mission statement? Who are you, right? Before I even look at your watches. That's where I'm at, which is kind of good because that helps me slow down the buying, addiction that we all have with these watches. Nobody has one watch in their collection anymore. It's often, a plethora of watches. But I'm looking at brand owners, and he was outstanding from the moment I spoke with him. He ended up sending me this watch. I want to get my hands on the 1212. That's probably something that I'm going to put in my collection because, again, versus this one, the only difference is we're talking about a Japanese movement, automatic. And if that's the only thing that's stopping you, he has that available on his website, and you can get a 20% discount code for just typing in half my name, Sky, at purchase, and you can acquire it, man. If your tritium tubes are for you and it's something that piques your interest, right? Because that's something that happened with me. Loom was something, I was never a really, really big loom guy, to be honest with you. I know that there are tons of enthusiasts out there that are really big on loom, so that's why I got fired up to really get behind this once I learned more about it. But loom was never a huge thing. Now, having a loom that's going to stay active regardless of sunlight exposure or any kind of, thing that charges it was definitely something that piqued my interest. Having the carbon fiber casing on it was something that piqued my interest, but what made that had my attention. What had my interest and what had me really already put my name on the list, if you will, was everything that he put into the watch and how he had a very in-depth thought process of really perfecting it. There's a lot of pride in him putting into the quality into this watch. And I really respect the fact that he didn't take advantage and make this an 800 to sub $1,000 watch, right? He kept it within the affordable range where it's sub 500. I believe it's sub 500. Don't kill me if it's something different. The automatic is a little bit more to be expected, but all affordable, robust, well-made movements. They have a long history when it comes to being accurate as far as functioning. I know a lot of people are a little movement fatigued from the NH35. Here's just my opinion. I know this is a little controversy for the NH35. People are tired of it because a lot of the micro brands especially utilize that affordable movement. But guys, it's a robust movement that really has a long history in standing very well. Seiko has always made very good movements, even before the NH35. If you talk about the SKX and the movement inside there, that's a 30-year-old watch. I mean, the watch still works for a lot of people, especially those who haven't used it for, every single day activity. They use it kind of like in rotation. And you'll see scuffs, you'll see, the watch has been worn for sure, but the movement, with the history of Seiko was still working and it didn't need a service. And if you are saying, Skylar, I use my watch every day, there's going to be a lot of knocks. There's, small pieces within a movement that's an automatic or a mechanical watch. I'm going to need a service before you do. Guys, it's a cheap service call, right? And I say cheap service call by saying you can just purchase another NH35 or whatever, line it is and have them swapped out the movement for a brand new one instead of taking apart and having more into it where you're going to take up that watchmaker's time and, do it. But I'm going off on a tangent. This watch doesn't have the automatic. This is the quartz version, but it's a fantastic watch. It's really well made. The design is very, very tactical. In fact, since I've had this on my wrist, I've felt like being more active and doing something. It just gives you that feel. It has a lot of robustness to it. I know there's a lot of people out there that like a bigger watch. We had a conversation and that goes back and forth of where watches are for size, and that's completely subjective, right? That's, I don't want to tread or step on anybody's toes that likes something larger than a 40, then maybe you like 50, maybe you like 50 plus, no problem. That was also a big hype in the early 2000s. But what I was trying to say at that point is that I feel like people, by people I mean watch brands, are more comfortable with scaling down and bringing it more towards that classical feel. But with this watch, you still have that robustness. It has a nice thickness to it, not heavy at all because of the material that we have into it. So definitely going to cover up the wrist. I have a 7¼ inch wrist. I'll put it back on wrist so you guys can see. And I'm completely ignoring chat. I apologize. I go on tangents. I'm actually going live in 20 minutes talking about that, bro. Learning more about people behind these devices we strap to our wrists. This is important. Yeah, Trap. Very good. Very good. I think that is something that is going to do nothing but not only grow the market for everyone, right? Talking about why we purchase the watches, from whom we purchase it for, and the passion behind it. Also, putting a bigger spotlight to independent brands, I think, is super important. But this is it on my wrist. I have a 7¼ inch wrist, give or take, on a warmer day. And it definitely, the wrist width, it fills it up nicely. The curve of the case is very, very nice, so no lugs hanging over. And again, that strap is conforming to my wrist, right? It's going straight around, it's nice and thick, but we have another obviously secure keeper here, but it's still very, very soft. So that's something to really note about. So let me just make sure that I talked about everything that I wanted to cover here for the watch as far as the features are concerned. Oh, talking about the strap, it's genuine rubber. That's another thing that Barry looked into as far as quality is concerned. So, it look, it's first class, right? I like to say this. This is something that I learned in the business aspect, and I had this model working for other companies as well. And when you have somebody that looks at every single detail and says, how can I make it the best quality that I could possibly do without making it astronomical? All of that again is subjective because Barry could have put a Swiss movement on it, right, where people automatically are going to gravitate towards it because I know there's a lot of people out there that just love Swiss more. But the fact of the matter is that you don't require a Swiss movement in a watch in order to have a movement inside the watch that you can rely on. That's a fact. And but again, that's my opinion, not a fact. But yeah, just every detail was looked at for this watch to give it its value, and he still priced it at a very, very good aggressive price. And I'm super grateful as a watch collector myself, even before putting one of his watches in my collection. And that's something that I've learned to value as I grow, and I've also learned to take some time before adding a watch in my collection. But I can pretty much zero in on the watches that I'm going to buy first, starting again, as Trap said in the chat. He said he's going to be talking about in 20 minutes about learning more about the people behind the watches. So if you guys are on this live and you want to have that kind of conversation, switch over to Trap Vision 3D. Me and him work hand in hand. We're a community. We are united as collectors, as content creators, and we have a mission statement that is very, very similar. And that mission statement is this: it all started with a watch, and in this case, a tactical Tritium watch. No matter where your watch collection journey takes you, no matter how you decide to collect, you guys are all welcome on this channel, as you should be. I appreciate you guys for jumping on this live with me to talk a little bit more about the Tritium watch that I have, and I'll see you guys in the next one.